Welcome to Quarantine Cuisine with Chef John Bell. Today, for our episode, we're going to do some Florida cuisine. In the United States, we have many different regions of food. Florida happens to be its own little region, consistent of many different pieces. In Florida, we have key lime pie, which comes from the Keys. It's influenced from the tropics. In Central Florida, we have like fried grouper on the coastlines. We have many different types of cultures. St. Augustine, which is America's oldest city. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of St. Augustine and the Spanish influence, and then the Seminole Indians and the Indians from throughout the United States that came here, the early Europeans, and the slaves. First, we're going to start with blueberry bread pudding because it takes a while to cook. So what we have now is we have our bread already cut up, and I'm using a souffle dish because it works better. You can use any baking dish. We have our eggs ready to go and our cream mixture. Now, the key is with bread pudding or any type of thing that you do with eggs, we must temper the eggs. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this hot liquid. We had to melt the sugar and the cream together with a little vanilla, and we want to make sure it just started to boil. We're going to add that to the eggs slowly, a little at a time, and what that's called is it's tempering the eggs. You can see the steam coming up from the eggs. If you pour it right in, what will happen is it'll actually cook those eggs. So what we're doing is we're making like a custard. So you want to add a little bit of cream mixture at a time, and that tempers the eggs. It brings them to their temperature. Once you get it started, from there you can go a little bit faster, but you want to just slowly bring that up to temperature. All right, once we have our egg mixture and cream mixture into the bread, notice the blueberries and the lemons are already put in there. We're just going to push it down, let it soak in. I let it sit for about 10 minutes before I bake it in the oven so it sucks into that bread. All right, so what we're doing today is we're doing Florida cuisine. Our menu is unique. It's a little touch of different aspects of Florida. So I have some pickled green tomatoes. I love fried pickles, so we're doing some fried pickled green tomatoes. I'll show you that in a little while. We have our blueberry bread pudding that's working in the oven right now, and blueberries are just finishing up their Florida season. We're doing like a take on a Cuban sandwich, which most people don't realize Cuban sandwiches were created in the early 1900s in Tampa by Cuban immigrants. So we are doing a stuffed pork loin, and we are going to stuff it with a homemade pickle mustard relish with onion relish, and we're going to butterfly this pork tenderloin that is from a local farm, and the onions are from a local farm, and the pickles are homemade here, and those cucumbers are also local. So the Cubans used a lot of cumin and a lot of different spices. So what we're going to do is we're going to butterfly it out. What I want to show you is when you have a tenderloin, it has on it what's called silver skin. And a lot of people get intimidated by buying these, but it's pretty simple. You just take the tip of your knife, you're going to cut away from it, and if you hold down the tip and pull away, most of that silver skin will come off. So you don't have to lose a lot of meat. I'll show you that again. So go underneath the silver skin, go backwards, and then you take it, just hold down with the knife, and you can pull. If you have gloves, it'll work a little bit easier, but see, that pulls right off. And you just keep doing that until it gets clean like this one. And then after we have that, you're just going to take a fillet knife, and we're just going to cut you can cut it in half, whatever works easiest for you. We're going to make an incision just using the tip of your knife. As you go back, you want to just keep following the tip all the way to get that opened up. Okay? And what we're going to do is after we stuff this pork loin, we're actually going to season it with the dry rub, and we're going to smoke it to give it a little bit different flavor. A couple things most people aren't really familiar with is Florida's known for certain things that people aren't aware of. Gator tail is actually from Florida. I know people in Louisiana will argue, but it was originally eaten here by the Indians. And then oranges, which we're most famous for, is the Florida orange. We're introduced as a sour orange by Columbus. I know a lot of people don't like Columbus in these days, but we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Columbus coming to Florida. The Spanish were the first here, so we have a lot of Spanish influence. All right, so we have our blueberry lemon bread pudding. We're gonna let that cool down. Our stuffed pork roast, stuffed pork loin is stuffed with our homemade pickle relish and candied onion relish. That's in the smoker now. Next, we're gonna start on our next dish, which is a little homage to our Seminole people that came to Florida. There were many different tribes, Cherokee, Sioux. There were a lot of tribes that escaped and came down here or were sent down here by our government. So this is called sapki. Basically, it's made with either wild rice or hominy. We're gonna do wild rice. I mean, we're gonna do white rice, but basically, so we're doing a bacon and corn sapki. So we have fresh bacon that's cooking with a little bit of onion. We have our corn that we're going to cut up, and we're going to let that caramelize for a little while. Then we're going to cook the rice into that. We're going to add a little bit of chicken stock. If you're vegan, you can add vegetable stock or just water, a little salt and pepper. It's really simple. Most of your flavor comes with bacon. If you're vegan, you can use a vegetarian type of bacon made from soy. It'll have that smokiness anyway. On that note, we were talking about Florida and the cuisine itself. We have a lot of different cultures. As we know, St. Augustine's the oldest city in America. They have a pepper there that's famous. It grows primarily there. Nobody really knows where it actually came from. Some people say the Africans brought it. It's called the datil pepper. Some people say the Menorcans brought it. The Menorcans is an island off of Spain, which was some of the first people that came to settle that area. They make a chowder there in St. Augustine. If you ever go, try Menorcan chowder. It's similar to like a Manhattan clam chowder. It's red. It's really spicy. A datil pepper. It's kind of as hot as a habanero, but much sweeter. They use it in ice cream, jellies. It's a phenomenal pepper. In Florida, they do what's called New World cuisine. They cook with a lot of yuca and fresh things, boniatos, and fresh ingredients that might have came with the Spanish and the Indians that were there. You go to South Florida, and they have that Cuban flair to it. North Florida, you have what's called the crackers. Depending on who calls you a cracker, it's either an insult or a compliment. But the crackers were the Europeans that came and did the farming. So they had their cuisine as well. So these different cultures that came together is what created ours. Then what's popular now, which is called Floridian, is kind of like Florida and Caribbean from the influence of all the slaves and the Caribbean islands that are right next to Florida. You got the Bahamas, you got Haiti, you got Cuba, you got the Virgin Islands. So all these cultures eat a lot of the same type of seafood and stuff, and that's what creates that cuisine. Okay, we have the corn and bacon sapki. What I did was I cooked the bacon partially, and then I roasted the bacon and the corn together. Now what I'm doing is I'm cooking the rice to glaze it really, really well. And I put, instead of hominy, because I'm not a fan of hominy or grits, even though it is a huge southern dish and the Indians ate it, I'm using cornmeal, coarse cornmeal, in with the rice. That'll give it texture, because sakafki is basically a thick, like almost like a porridge type of rice. So that's what we're going to do with that by adding the cornmeal to it. Again, I'm Chef Bell. This is the final part of my meal of our Florida cuisine. it encompasses many cultures, from the over 100 Indian and natural Native Americans that lived in the United States or lived in Florida at that time, to the Spanish that first came with Ponce de Leon, to the English, to the Germans, the Italians, the French. We are a huge conglomerate of cultures. And then with the influx of the Caribbean and the Cubans, we have a great, unique culture of foods. So we have our blueberry bread pudding, lemon blueberry bread pudding. We will show a picture of that when we're ready with the ice cream. Then we have our Cuban infused smoked pork loin. It's a homage to a Cuban sandwich with mustard and pickles, great flavors. We have our sofki. Remember, when you make the sofki, it's going to be pastier than a regular rice. If you do it with hominy, it's more like a polenta. We have our fried green tomatoes, and we have our southern style green beans. Now, all this food comes within 50 miles of my house in Central Florida. This is truly Florida food at its best. I will enjoy it with a local beer. You enjoy it with a local glass of orange juice or apple juice or whatever you find. When you travel, remember, Florida's more than Disney World. We are a state that I've enjoyed my entire life. As a kid, we came here every winter. I remember going to the orange groves and trying coconuts, to when I moved here and finished high school. I love the foods, the people, and the cuisines that we have, and the influences of each and every individual person that influences these foods. So give it a try, do some research, learn about our history, and eat local. Try some gator, try some grouper, have some key lime pie, and definitely try some southern style Florida cuisine. Again, like I said, all the foods are local. The pork is from Lake Meadow Farms. When we went shopping there the other day, we bought a bunch of meats. They have phenomenal meats. I was introduced to them through the Central Florida ACF chapter. I've been a huge fan of their farm and what they do. I want to thank them. When we bought our food, they gave us a jar of pickled green tomatoes, and I'm like, wow, I never had that. So I love pickled fried pickles. So I said, why not fry some pickled green tomatoes? So Lake Meadows, great meat, great farm, great ice creams, great products. Buy local. I am going to make some blueberry ice cream that goes with our blueberry lemon bread pudding. This is for Fallon Lewis, so that you can learn how to make ice cream with your fresh blueberries from Southern Hill Farms here in Claremont. Again, everything is local, so we're going to make a quick type of ice cream. You don't need an ice cream machine, you just need some type of a blender, and we'll show you how to easily do it. First, you need some frozen blueberries. That's your ice. So we're going to use some frozen blueberries. We're going to put about 2 cups of fresh frozen blueberries in here. That's our ice. We're going to add some heavy whipping cream into our chopper. There's a little bit of cream, about a cup. We add a little vanilla, about a teaspoon to tablespoon, depending on what you like. You can use sugar. You can use honey. You can use whatever you want. We're going to actually use unfortunately, some white sugar because it gives it a little bit more flavor. For vegans, you can use coconut milk, works really well. You can use almond milk. I will say coconut milk is much better with making ice cream. You can use rice milk. Either way works. Like I said, you don't need an ice cream machine. You just want some fresh frozen fruit. Okay, and you can adjust it from there. So we got our sugar, a little bit of cream, and we are gonna whip this up pretty quickly. to break up a few more of those chunks of blueberries. Make sure they break up, as it'll freeze up your motor. So be careful. You can tell it's starting to get thick. We're going to add just a tiny bit more cream to it just to help that out. Basically, ice cream is just whipped cream that is frozen. When you're using an ice cream machine, it goes slowly to churn it. This works similar. When I worked for the hotels when I did apprenticeship, we take mixers with ice underneath the bowls to do ice cream so that we can get it done and do it in large batches. Take that last piece of blueberries, get that cracked up. Now this will stay frozen. We can refreeze if you want a little bit colder. It'll stay for a couple weeks in the freezer. I like to put it in Ziploc bags, that way it doesn't get any freezer burn on it. But like making whipped cream, it's basically the same premise. You can see that it's nice and thick. And we're actually going to put this right on the blueberry bread pudding. But it's nice, it's cold, it's creamy, creamier than what an ice cream machine will make. Sweet, again, adjust it with sugar, honey. You can even use maple syrup if you're from Maine. That works well. Enjoy your blueberry ice cream.